glad that you are here and appreciate you for coming on.
My pleasure. You're welcome.
All right, what you got for us tonight?
Well, I have a little something that I've been working on pretty much based on what people have been actually giving me in the form of reports, justifying and validating some lectures that I had done years ago.
Right.
Related to the fact that the European of today is actually someone that I refer to as the Neo-Neanderthal, or who he's now calling himself Humanithal or Humanthal. He's now actually adopting a euphemism around what we've been speaking about, and of course what it is that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had spoken to us about, and the myth of Yaqub and the whole 9 yards. And a lot of people, a lot of my students who had viewed that videotape of the tape I did where I showed that the sons of Esau and Japheth, those who are breaking down the codes of the Bible and so forth, coming up and speaking to the fact that I believe it's in Genesis 25 and 25 when they speak about Rebecca having a child, and the first one who came out, who was supposed to serve the younger, the older one serving the younger, the first one who came out was red, and his whole body was a hairy garment. In other words, he was covered with hair. So you figure that the redhead, essentially the red-headed entity, straight-haired entity, was exactly what it is that the scientists today are now classifying as the Neanderthal. So there are stories that are in the Bible that are justifying the fact that there may have been two creations. He is now, of course, justifying his humanity by putting all kinds of information out that has nothing to do with science. It has more to do with his pseudoscience that he is trying to fit into a puzzle that he has created based upon his sciences of anthropology and archaeology. So there are certain things that he is now saying that doesn't seem to make sense. For instance, in dealing with his marked inferiority complex of what it is that he's now found out about his genetics. Of course, studying the human genetics now has made it even more difficult for him to justify his existence. Of course, you know that the rape and the digging up of Africa, the desecration of tombs of our ancestors, and the breaking up of tribes, and the destruction, the complete and wanton destruction of historical information as well as historical monuments and so forth, would mean nothing to him at this point because of what I have come to understand as the empathetic disconnect that the Neanderthal has for the true man being, because basically there are no genetics linking him to the true man. And so therefore we now have to deal with his abandonment issues, or at least his amnesiac issues of not knowing where he originates from. So as I'm saying in the new upcoming Hidden Colors, that the deeper the white anthropologist digs the earth and in Africa and all places where indigenous peoples live, the blacker the planet becomes. Everywhere he goes for any evidence of his existence, he keeps digging up black artifacts, black remnants of the fact that this was a black planet. Now he has taken his own archaeology or archaeological tenets and archaeological practice, began digging into the DNA, into the tombs, or into the parts of the human body that have within it buried certain scientific evidence as to who the true humanity was on this planet. And now that he has dug and found no connection to who he said were the original peoples in Africa, his entire science said that all life began in Africa. That being the case, how come there are no pieces of evidence in his own genetics to connect him to the sub-Saharan peoples that he knows to be the original peoples of Africa? So what I have been saying for the longest is that the disconnect and the ability for him to keep his wanton savagery and disconnect from the feelings and from the sufferings of African people is because he no longer, or pretty much does not, or ever had any connections to the true man being, which is the true human being on this planet.
I mean, that definitely correlates to the information I've been studying too. I mean, if your heritage is non-African, then you are part Neanderthal, according to the new studies in the July issue of the Molecular Biology and Evolution. Discovery News has also reported on this Neanderthal and so-called human interbreeding for some time. But like you said, if it was humans in which that interbreeded with Neanderthal, then they would have African a connection. But since they don't, then they're lying about the research in which that they've been to, in which that they are even coming out saying. And they are still trying to say that the Neanderthal man came from out of Africa about 30,000 years ago.
Yeah. He is trying to connect himself to what it is that everywhere on the planet shows to be human. He does not have that connection. Everything he has been based on his conquest and absorption of cultures and complete destruction and estrangement and separation of those peoples from the culture that he has now absorbed. It's interesting, a incredible author named Franz Fallon stated in one of his works about the Europeans' mindset is that when he had conquered and destroyed African civilizations, he began to turn them psychologically into what became known by Freud, or with Freud, as the other. The other is this beast that the European believes lives on the borders of his civilization, and that the borders of civilization essentially is representative of everything that is not him. So when he conquered, he not only took the land, but he took everything that was on the land as well as was within the people themselves. So he stole culture, he stole science, he stole everything, absorbed it, became it, and actually in his own psychosis believed that it belonged to him. Because based on the fact that he was superior and actually conquered these people, then he had a right to their mindset, and that they no longer have right to their own psychology and mindset, that it now belongs to me. It's the Elvis syndrome. So that particular mentality now is now playing itself into the way the European is now legitimizing his excursion into recolonizing Africa. He is stating now that according to the genetics that we have that they have now discovered, if you have any traces of Neanderthal, it would not make you an African anymore. So now what he's now saying is that if the Africans who, quote-unquote, migrated out of Africa, interbred with the Neanderthals and then reintegrated back into Africa, it means that they're not Africans. Therefore, they can lay claim to the territories based upon that type of indigenous kind of parasitic hitching a ride genetically into Africa, the same way that they're claiming to be so-called Native Americans over here, and they're pale white. This is the kind of interface. But the thing I want to get our brothers and sisters to realize is to show them that everywhere that you are looking at this point, when you're looking at the so-called Alpha European, the one that is now shown to be the higher order of human being, the ones that they show you in their anthropology when they show you the monkey and then the gradation and the evolution of humanity from the monkey, you don't ever see Africans standing right behind the white man. It goes straight from monkey to white man. Therefore, he does not include us in whatever he calls his evolutionary strain. But you can see that the Neanderthal, which now he has embraced because of his genome project, is now discovering that he is a Neanderthal. At least 4 to 10% of the Neanderthal strain is in what they call the new Homo sapien, or the new human being, him calling himself human now.